to the November Campfire Chat. We're really glad that you've joined us. We have a really fun topic today, which we're going to unpack with our guests. And first of all, my name is Brad Willems, and I'm a consultant with the Donor Motivation Program here in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia. And we're really glad that you are joining us today. Our topic that we've decided to discuss today is giving local and the current trend that there appears to be developing of more and more people wanting to make their impact in their local communities. And so we're going to explore that topic, and then we're going to look at a specific case study of where this showed itself here in the last year, right in our community. So I'd like to welcome my guests today. First off, we have my good friend, Tom Berekoff. Now, Tom Berekoff is the CEO of TPB Strategic Counsel, a Canadian-based consultancy service serving charities and not-for-profit organizations. Tom has been in his current capacity for over 35 years and is well achieved in every area of his career. He is currently the president of CFRE International, which is the only crediting organization for fundraising professionals in North America. Tom was the past chair of GiveWise Foundation, an emerging donor-advised fund focusing on digital innovation to bring these services to their clients and donors. And then Tom is also currently the chairman of the board of Advancing Family Medicine Foundation for the College of Family Practitioners in Canada, with membership of over 42,000 people in the medical field. And so clearly a fine example of professionalism and expertise with Tom Berekoff. But most importantly, I would say Tom is my friend for more than 15 years. And I would be most pleased to lean on him for advice over the last many years as we talk about anything that has to do with charitable giving and philanthropy, as my go-to expert in the field. Our second guest today is Steve Willems. Steve is a certified financial planner working with high net worth families. He is currently on the board of directors of the Abbotsford Community Foundation. And full disclosure here, any similarities to yours truly are not coincidental. So, Tom, as we get going our conversation today, I have loved the opportunity that we've seen where people have begun to give more locally, or it's become a larger theme to give locally. Is this an emerging trend? Is it a trend that's always been there, or has COVID in some way elevated this idea that let's make our impact at home? What are you seeing from your perspective as you work in this area?
Thanks, Brad. And if you don't mind, a quick shout out to CAGP, first of all. As chair of CFRE International, I am so proud that CAGP is one of 30 partnering organizations of CFRE International, delivering valued education and training resources for fundraising professionals in Canada. So really grateful for that relationship between CFRE and CAGP. To your question, Brad, local giving has always been an important part of charitable giving in Canada and globally. However, COVID absolutely has lit a fire under many more people to accelerate their focus upon local. Some of that's related to the fact that we couldn't travel. Some of it definitely relates to the realities that COVID has exposed things like homelessness, food insecurity, issues related to education, drug addiction, what have you. And so people, because they couldn't travel far, have seen more in their own backyards. And it's really enhanced the desire and aspiration to want to help.
I think you have coined the term glocal. If not you, I'm giving you the full credit for it. talk about this concept that you've coined, glocal.
Thanks, Brad. So if I can, a little bit of context to this. So donors choosing to give local often see the issue, challenge, and opportunity firsthand and have a greater desire and emotional attachment to wanting to support something that they can see and feel. They also have a greater expectation that something's going to happen. So the expectation comes with a greater sense of the impact, outcomes, and change is going to happen more readily. And I think related to all of this is the fact that local charities are able to mobilize and are more nimble in their own backyards, in their own communities. And with that, there's a greater sense of expectation of change. The concept of local comes when the reality of big societal problems also are rooted in local communities. And some of the best ideas for scalability happen from the concept of it happens and starts somewhere as a pilot project, as an initial case, and then it gets translated. So glocal has become actually one of my favorite words. What is glocal means what is local can also be global. There's currency today in charities, in faith-based organizations, in community-based organizations, and yet all of that is rooted in management theory related to how does a startup become a growing company, and it looks at diversification and growth and scaling. So it really has a high degree of relevance to our work today, local.
Love it. Now, one of the things that seems maybe it's intuitive, but it seems to me that more and more donors, particularly in their local communities, are asking bigger why questions, and they're asking more questions about how they can be involved and how they can help to craft the outcomes and the directions of their local charities. Are you seeing that, and how do our charitable organizations need to sort of keep that front and center in their mind about drawing in their people to their why as opposed to presenting their why?
Absolutely. You know, part of the engagement strategy with donors is not just their giving, but how do they get their hands involved on the issue? Helping is a big part of their wanting to give. And maybe just to broaden the question a little bit about how does that small and mid-sized charity maximize the opportunity? And I'd like to use a bit of alliteration with you, Brad. I think the best way for charities to optimize their work locally is to focus upon caring, to be relevant to the fact that they have to be competent in the work they're doing. They have to be courageous enough to step into the issue. They have to communicate really well because they're talking to and with their own community. They need to be really clear about what it is they're going to do. They have to be willing to collaborate. Collaboration is not an easy thing because at times it means you're going to lead and times you're going to follow. But collaboration and executing on collaboration is ultimately one of the things that helps to get the job done and gets the job done with speed and scale within a community. There needs to be chemistry between organizations. We all have our own mission, vision, and purposes, but at the end of the day, we also are focused upon helping. What are the outcomes that need to happen that make our community a better place? And then we need captains. And this is an important part, and you'll hear a lot about, from my perspective, I use sport analogies, and I believe that captains in organizations really play an important role. And the captains model by their actions, not just by what they say. And I think we need to have really good captains in our charitable organizations, especially in local communities, that can rally others around them, that can motivate and encourage and not make it about them. Because ultimately the heroes are the beneficiaries, the heroes are the donors, the heroes are getting things done.
Wow, that is a layup if I ever saw one for our continuing topic here. Thanks, Tom. It is just a remarkable time that we in our community are living in. I hope you can see this picture of our beautiful Fraser Valley taken here recently. This is what it looks like for us who have the fortune of living in this. What you're looking at here is a drained lake bed that is fully diked. 1 year ago today, our community suffered an incredible catastrophe, and this is what that same lake bed or fertile farmland looked like 1 year ago today. as we had one of the greatest disasters our community has ever seen, with a flood that breached the dikes after massive rainstorms hit and created over $1 billion of losses and damage in our community. And that water down there that you're looking at looks like fresh rainwater, but when you understand there are hundreds of farms down there, and the manure and waste from all of those farms was dislodged and floated into that water, and that became an incredible cesspool of foul water traveling throughout a 25-mile lake bed, destroying literally hundreds and hundreds of farms. We had a catastrophe on our hands. And when we have in the past, we've talked about what our favorite drink is. I say my favorite drink has always been water, but never more so than today, where we have clean, clear drinking water. And we had too much water 1 year ago. Steve, you were at the center of this so-called storm. Tell us your reality when you woke up 1 year ago today, and what hit you and what did you do?
Sure. Thanks, Brad. I'll just tell the story in pictures and see if I can do it in a minute or less. A year ago today, we were actually doing a joint event between the Abbotsford Community Foundation, where I serve on the board. I'm a chair of their marketing and communications committee. We're doing a joint event for National Philanthropy Day. Many of us would be aware of what the day looks like, middle of November. A joint event with the University of the Fraser Valley. We had a speaker, Tamara Taggart, and we were walking through what it means to be a philanthropist in your community. Again, this very relevant topic today. Then, as that event was going on, the rains continued to pour. This was the third day of rain. That evening, after that event occurred, this is what the regular street that I would look at looked like on my way to work. I would drive through this. This is now an 8-foot puddle. There's a hydroplane in that a hovercraft, if you look close enough in that picture. The day later, this is what it looked like. And on the morning of this image, I had a marketing and communications committee meeting, again through the role of the Abbotsford Community Foundation. And we just felt like we had to do something. There's this urge probably in most of us. That's why we're involved in the space, to help, to solve problems, to fix things. And that was our urge. At the same time, UFV, the local university, had reached out to our executive director at the foundation, and she had said, "Hey, we also want to help." And then we reached out to the local Chamber of Commerce, and the ED there, and she also said, "We also want to help." And long story short, within us finishing that committee meeting at 9:30 in the morning, and identifying resources and gaps and what would need to happen, quickly met with the city to make sure that we weren't stepping on any toes. They were in full-blown crisis mode. By 5 o'clock, we had a soft launch of a campaign. We did the hard launch 12 hours later, and a week later, we had raised $1 million. That was unfathomable when we had started this. It was my first time doing anything that had a sniff of virality to it, which I think taps onto this kind of local but also global piece here. There's a lot of things that we learned.
So you, Tom, in your comments, you said that we needed captains to have some impact like this in these really, especially urgent initiatives. Steve, just maybe briefly explain how the captains at these three organizations, you at the Community Foundation and then the Chamber and the University, came together, and what they brought to the table that made this a great partnership in this crisis.
Right. It came all about completely organically, right? So as a community foundation, we've got really great inroads with the local nonprofit sector, obviously within Abbotsford by way of us granting to them every single year. University had a specific resource that we lacked. They had human capital, they had volunteers, they had people, they had a marketing team. All of a sudden we were getting calls from all around the world. Someone from Microsoft would call wanting to make a donation. the Vancouver Canucks, a jam company in California, and we're a bootstrapped community organization of three paid staff. We couldn't handle all this. So we needed that human capital. The chamber brought the connectivity within the business community, which obviously was most affected. Most of the businesses that operated in this region were farmers, and so the chamber brought the connectivity into that group. And so everyone really did bring a very critical ingredient. If any one of these linkages were not there, this wouldn't have worked as well as it would have. And just to be clear, in terms of captaincy, I by no means would say that I was the captain of anything here. I just happened to be a member of the team at the right time who happened to have this gut problem in your gut, and the way that we fix the problem in our gut is we just get busy moving and building something. Wendy from the Community Foundation, she certainly would be our captain.
Steve, if I could just pick up on your story, which is so profound and prolific and impactful, can you share? Did you have a perfect plan in place, or did you just begin?
We did the next incremental step that would help us get towards fixing a problem. There was no grand vision. Once we were a couple days into the process, so by Friday we knew that we had a bit of a thing on our hands, because this had already grown far beyond anything that, as of the Wednesday, that we could have ever imagined. So all we did was we just tried to take the smallest next appropriate step. And again, because there was a coalition of these three entities, there was probably a risk, if it wasn't a coalition, for there to be some pretty apparent blind spots that you'd miss in the pursuit of speed. But because we had a pretty well-rounded and diverse group of captains, in your language, Tom, we were able to cover off kind of those potential blind spots or gaps in terms of communication and messaging and clarity and strategy development along the way.
Could I just add a couple of things, and maybe mine's going to sound more philosophical or academic, but the important takeaways that you're sharing are: we need to act, and we don't have to worry about perfection. The action is everything. If we try to wait for perfection or to have the ideal scenario in place, we're going to miss the just in time and the critical moment. We have to act, and act now. And I think that carries forward even into our donor community and beneficiaries alike. They're not expecting perfection of us, but they need and deserve our best actions now. They deserve a clear path of communications of what's happening, what's changing, what's needed. And from my recollections of your story, all of that was happening iteratively as it was going, hour by hour, day by day. And then incrementally, you were getting resources out to where it was needed most. Maybe a further follow-up with you there.
Yeah, incremental. I mean, we're a community foundation is built, as some of you on the call would be familiar, obviously, like you receive a small handful of large donations in a year. And then here, all of a sudden, over the course of a month, we received 6,000 donations, which we fundamentally were still processing on the basis of receiving 12. That system completely broke. It was not gonna work. We would process a donation and 4 more would come in. It was a wave. Poor metaphor. A rush of water. And so that was one of those things. Like in the first 3 days, we realized we can't continue to operate the way that things that we would normally have. We didn't know that when we started, but all of a sudden, again, the next important decision is we have to continue to execute on this, and so we need to retool how all of our processes internally. The donors can't see any of this, but they trust us to handle it. And again, that was the next most important piece that we deal with.
And Steve, in the humility of your imperfection, what you also are saying, though, which I think our charitable community needs to hear loud and clear, you can't afford not to act in these situations. If you tried to wait for the sun to shine and a beautiful epiphany to happen, it wasn't going to happen. You had to drive that solution.
Our feeling was, if we didn't, who would? Right. And like who else in the community would have the the ability. Everyone had the desire. It was the actual ability to step into that space, and that was thankfully the gut feeling that three of us had organizationally, and I think that's we're thankful that it wasn't just us, because we couldn't have done this. We certainly couldn't have.
Brad, Steve, there's a follow-up I just want to ask, if you don't mind. Yeah, in times of crisis and disasters and emergencies, there's no question about that speed and urgency of helping to be there. There's also a truth, though, beyond the immediacy of these situations. There are long and lasting effects and consequences, and as charities and collectives working together to help, it's important that you keep your mind on helping, not just for the immediate, but for that long term. All of this is raw and real, a year ago, still today, and into that new and unfolding future. How is this affecting the ACF and as it goes forward?
Right. Yeah. And so as a coalition, we over the last year, this effort has raised over $4.4 million.
Wow.
Which is
great.
We were in the early days, to think that we would have done $1 million would have just been laughable even at that time. So 4.4, and 80% of that has been distributed directly to those affected. 1,000 families have received grants. 200 different businesses have received support. And we've always tried to acknowledge that there's going to be phases of the response here. There's still between about 12 to 24, the number's still a little unclear, families who have not yet moved in. There's still water in their basement. The trauma from this experience is so immense that they are immobilized. And the recovery, if the water is still in your house at this point in time, is a different type of recovery than what it would have been otherwise. And so at this point, the answer is, with the remaining funds, how do we just as strategically as possible just deliver the most kind of value as we can, acknowledging again that there's different phases in this recovery process until the community comes back to a sense of wholeness, right? Will we ever go back to the way things were? No, but we do need to pursue this sense of recovery collectively, which we obviously can't fix $1 billion problem, but we can help catalyze a recovery along the way. That's our feeling, at least.
I love the response and how quick it happened. And I also love the fact that there was courage enough within those organizations not to worry about how this might look if they messed up a little bit as they attempted to make this rapid response. And there's a word that the people around me will know I use quite regularly, and that is better done than perfect. And I think this would be an example of that. The need was urgent. The opportunity was also right in front of you. Steve, you mentioned to me the speed with which donations were coming in at one point during this process, and how you were sort of overwhelmed by it. Just speak to that one little thing, because it's such a unique little stat.
Yeah, every 20 seconds another donation came in. We would go collect, Wendy from the ACF would go collect the mail in the mailbox that could come in over the weekend, and there'd be $100,000 checks in the mail. And this was after we had shut down the online portal. At one point we decided that we needed to, we needed to now focus on the granting side than the fundraising side. So we actually closed the public access to the donations in the new year, and the checks still came in. We were trying to deliberately make it harder for people to donate because we wanted to focus on our efforts on the granting strategy at that point, and they still kept on coming in. And on this concept of small charities doing big impact, like again, tons of other local groups did this as well. There's a local Gateway Community Church has set up granting streams where build partnerships with local appliance suppliers and get new fridges and equipment into people's kitchens if they were lost. Everyone lost their lawnmower or their farm utensils because they were sitting in a shop and the shop was underwater. So they built connections to fix those individual little problems. Again, it's a lot of small component parts. We fund them, and then they have this much larger impact. Seemed pretty relevant to the topic here today.
You know,
yeah, it's just amazing in the community when you see these actions taken quickly. And as a broad comment, in my work on working with the charitable sector and the boards that I've been a part of, I've always encouraged our leaders to be entrepreneurial. The people that support our organizations, they really want to make a difference in their community, first of all, as we're talking here, but at an even broader scope in their world. And it has always been baffling to me about the cautiousness within our sector. And I think this is a good reminder that entrepreneurial spirit and taking action quickly, in spite of not having all of your I's dotted and your T's crossed, is a really great example of what can be done. And so as leaders in our sector, I encourage us to be bold, be entrepreneurial, and set a vision that is larger than what we might be comfortable with, because that's the only way we're really going to change the world around us. It's not likely we're going to change it incrementally. We need to change it by being bold and maybe even brash, which would not be what our sector is really known for, would it?
You're exactly right. We're so heads down and get the job done that we need to take just that moment to acknowledge that only we can do the things that we do, because no one else is going to do it if we don't. And that's why the importance of taking action is so important for our sector.
Yes. So as we close off here in the next couple of minutes, Steve, maybe just one final comment about how did you go about determining how to distribute all this money? How did that little process go? And then Tom, any closing comments you might want to make?
All right, so on the granting strategy, the first realization was just acknowledging that there's going to be phases to this. So we don't need to feel like the whole amount needs to be allocated immediately. There's going to be things that we learn 6 months from now that we could never know today. So acknowledging that there should be a phasing to it. Within the coalition, we built a granting committee and established different streams through partnerships with these different agencies. And we became kind of the dedicated funder of those different strategies. Again, with the goal to be as direct and quick a path to the end affected party as possible, obviously within the confines of the law. The speed was an important part, and also the humanity of it was important as well. Most of the check deliveries happened in person. We would hand deliver as many checks as we could, so we could see the party that was affected, and ultimately hear their story. We read about it, now we wanted to hear it. These are real people. For most of these people, this was the first dollar that they had received. We tried to get their dollar in before they got disaster funding, before the Red Cross, before their insurance. And so though it was a smaller dollar relative to their total loss, it was important that the humanity of it was maintained, and as well the expediency of it was honored, and I think more significant in light of their experience. Tom?
Quick takeaways for me are, you did that work in the best posture, which is with. You connected donors and beneficiaries. There's no hierarchy, there's no pedestal, there's no podium looking for recognition. It's getting the job done. That's what matters in the philanthropic sector. And remember, especially at the local level, the beneficiaries, the donors, are all our friends, our neighbors, our workmates, and family. So this is a time when the meaning of philanthropy really is palpable for us. And I just want to have a little shout out for you guys, because yesterday you celebrated your 8th year as part of the Donor Motivation Program. And I know I've worked with you a lot over that time, and the DMP produces true value. I just want to encourage other charities who want to advance their planned giving program to take a really good hard look at what you do, because you're fully donor centered, ultimately deepens the relationship between the charity and the donors. and you're producing real dollars, current dollars, as well as future expectancies. This is a great resource to the charitable sector. And I just want to thank you for your 8 years and years even before that of ongoing service to our sector. So thanks.
Thank you, Tom, for that unknowing endorsement. We appreciate that. Thanks, Steve and Tom, for being our guests today. We're hopeful that we've inspired you in some way, and that you have you've got a couple of pieces or nuggets that you can use to make your own charitable organization even more successful and impactful in your community. So we look forward to seeing you in December at the next Campfire Chat. Thanks for joining us today.